Welcome back to Channel 9 Live here at Microsoft Ignite in Orlando, Florida. We are blessed to have the presence of Mark Russinovich joining us here today, the CTO of Azure. If you can hear us out in the wild, you're welcome to come on in and grab some seats. We have some seats left here in front for the live performance and discussion.
Performance?
Performance maybe, but more so the discussion.
Are you going to dance again?
I could dance, but I really don't want to embarrass myself in front of Mark, to say the least.
You've already done that before.
Well,
so.
thank you. I appreciate the candor. But Mark Russinovich, the CTO of Azure, we're going to be joining here for doing some questions and some conversation for the next 30 minutes or so, and then we'll take you back into the regular streaming sessions that are taking place during Microsoft Ignite Conference. And don't forget, you can always catch this content here recorded after the fact in case you missed this particular one at techcommunity.microsoft.com. Just go ahead and register and have access to all those sessions.
Absolutely.
So I was thinking back off stage and chatting with some folks and chatting with you as well and trying to reflect back on, it's about, you were saying 4 years now that you've been CTO
That's
of
right.
Azure?
Yep.
And a lot has changed in 4 years, and a lot has remained the same. And I'm curious, what are some things that have changed for you and changed for the Azure world in the last 4 years that kind of stick out the most for you for these different types of roles?
So first, I've been in Azure for 8 years.
Right,
So
correct.
So you've been there basically since the beginning.
Close to the beginning. The commercial launch of Azure was in February of 2010. I joined in July of 2010. So pretty close to the beginning of the commercial launch. But so if I look back to that point, when I started in Azure, nobody at the company knew what Azure was. It was... they'd say, "Oh, Mark, you left Windows. Where are you?" Azure. What is that? It's a cloud platform. What's a cloud? Infrastructure as a service. What's that? Yeah. And the first all hands I gave to everybody in the company that knew anything that was Azure, which was just the people in the Azure team, that was about 400 people at the time.
Right.
Everybody. And we launched in 2 data centers with on the order of like 40,000 servers, somewhere around there. So we've come a long, long way. And in the 4 years that I joined, I can't remember exactly what was going on when I became CTO. Time flies, as we said.
Right, right.
Especially when you're in the cloud and you saw the list of announcements now. It just continues to accelerate.
Right.
But in terms of regions, I think if you went back there, we were probably in 12 regions or something 4 years ago, and now we're in 54 regions.
Wow.
And so that continues to grow. The number of services now that we have compared to then, it's probably tripled or quadrupled. The maturity of the platform, the scale of the platform, the capabilities of the platform, the higher level functionality like security, monitoring, and the CI/CD stuff that we've got with VSTS has matured a lot. Now Azure DevOps.
Right. 4 years ago, did you forecast or foresee this level of growth? I mean, you've been in for 4, CTO, and then 4 now. Did you actually see that hockey stick in the projections, what you're looking for?
Yep, absolutely. And actually, when I was looking around to decide what to do next in 2010, I'd been in Windows. I'd seen the mobile tidal wave, and when I was focused on that, but when I took a step back and said, what's going on, it became clear to me that cloud was going to be huge.
That was the thing.
Yeah, that was the thing, and that's why I went to Azure, is because I was convinced that the world was going to move to cloud, and Microsoft was in an awesome position to have one of the premier cloud platforms, and I'd getting in early enough to have a big impact on it. So the hockey stick has not surprised me at all.
Oh, okay.
And I think we're just at the beginning of this inflection right now.
What has surprised you?
In some ways, I expected the massive growth to be even faster than it has been because of the benefits that cloud provides. I don't think I fully internalized at the time the complexity that enterprises have in figuring out how to get things to the cloud and keep things managed and compliant and secure and keep costs under control. So that is that aspect of the complexity took me by surprise, especially because if you look at 4 years ago, there was a ton of shadow IT going on back then.
Right.
And so that convinced me that the move would be fast, but that shadow IT was not managed, was not governed, was not cost controlled.
Very unruly. Organic growth.
So that was stuff that would be a natural citizen for the cloud anyway.
Yeah.
Whereas the big things, I guess your biggest potential customers, that's a lot more difficult.
Yeah.
I'm just going to remind everybody, because we are in the live environments, we do have the opportunity to take some questions online if you happen to go to the Channel 9 webpage at channel9.msdn.com. you are able to go ahead and to put a question on the form. We'll be able to take a look at it. We're going to we're going to audit them a little bit.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it's
We're
not kinda
not
just out of the
going to
blue.
ask you your favorite color
Yeah,
or.
why not?
I mean,
Well, we
what is your
could.
favorite color?
Azure Blue.
Of
Azure
course,
Blue.
there
All
you
right.
go.
Favorite Taylor Swift song?
Now,
Oh, I don't know.
Let's see. Okay.
I was going to ask him if he's
'Cause
so
I asked-
committed.
So good. I don't know.
Because I asked Guthrie that, so I had to follow.
Did he
up.
have one?
He did.
What was it?
Shake it off.
Oh, yeah. Well, I guess that's the.
If I was going to say, if you are
It's the
committed to
go-to.
the, you are committed to the color blue, do you have a car that is blue as well?
I do.
Okay.
Yep.
Nice. So it's good. You're committed that way.
Yep.
That's good.
Is it like color matched exactly to the Azure Blue?
No. It's close, though. But, yeah.
That can work. I
This
like
particular car manufacturer has a color blue that's pretty close.
that. Nice. Excellent.
But blue was my actually favorite color growing up, so it's just.
Ah.
Did you
coincidence, yeah.
influence the
I was
color?
going to
that
say,
they
was that
chose?
your
No, I
no?
did
Because I think Windows Azure, because that was the original
Yeah.
name, right? I'm trying to think. I see its logo in my head, and I believe that
Yeah.
it was a different shade of blue, but it was a blue.
darker. And I think it was picked because the cloud,
Right.
it's kind of ironic because the cloud is white.
Right.
The absence of cloud is blue, but that the marketing people, it's kind of worked. So
We have interesting choices that we
Yeah.
come up with. Sometimes
Yeah.
people question the choice we have for different
Yeah.
names of things. From a data center perspective, I know you have a session coming up tomorrow that we're going to be live streaming here around Azure data centers and how they work and what's going on, that sort of stuff. Without stealing thunder from your session that's going on, I know I've seen the internal version of that, and I'm anxious to see what you're going to be doing for the external version of that, because I'm assuming you can't give away secret sauces and stuff like that we're doing.
yeah, so you're referring to we've got this Ready conference that we have twice a year.
Right.
The field comes which is sales and support.
Yep.
To either Vegas or Seattle, and that one it's NDA and Microsoft confidential, so I give a pretty good view of what we've got on the roadmap.
Right.
And it's all roadmap stuff. Like I do not show things that are out
Correct.
at
Oh,
all.
yeah.
But here, of course, it's a little different. I need to talk about things that we're willing to talk about that are further out, as
Right.
well as highlight some things that are really cool about things that are now. So I'll be showing a little bit of both of that.
Okay.
Some things that we've talked about that are coming, and even including some things that, like, we launched Ultra SSD,
Right.
Yeah.
which is a very
That was my pick.
I was going to say
that was
Rick,
my pick as my favorite.
yesterday
from
when we talked
Keynote.
about our favorite
Was
things
that.
for Keynote, that was Rick's favorite.
Yeah. And it is it's an
It's
awesome.
ultra.
Yeah, it's ultra. It is. It's ultra cool, ultra fast, ultra low latency. The Corey showed a demo of that in his
Right.
session.
Yeah.
I'm gonna one up him
Oh.
with an even better demo.
Oh, okay. Now I'm not allowed to attend those sessions because we have to give the seats to actual paying attendees.
Yeah.
So now I'll be on my smartphone watching that with the Microsoft app.
Yeah,
that we
and
have
that's
to be able
just
to do it.
one of the. I've got some shock and awe demos in this.
Okay. So can you share
presentation.
how many demos you actually have, perhaps?
I think it's 10.
10
Yeah,
demos.
and actually-
in a 75-minute session.
Yeah.
I like
It's
it.
about 25 minutes of demo time, and so I'm tweaking, I'm tuning it, so it might be 9.
Okay.
The thing is, what's so painful is like I've already cut it down. It was 15, and it's just cutting them is so hard to do.
It's
like
It's like picking your favorite child as a
Exactly,
father. You can't
exactly.
really do that. You have
Yeah.
to let them all happen.
There was a book about that.
Huh?
Sophie's
About-
Choice.
yeah.
I mean,
Very
okay,
true.
that
And a
got a little
movie.
dark. That yes,
Yeah.
but that got a little dark. I apologize to the
Yeah.
audience. But yeah.
It's not quite that intense,
Okay.
but it is hard. And this is going to be a new record because I think my previous record for demos was at the last Ready,
Okay.
where I think I did 8 or
Wow.
9.
Yep.
And the previous one before that was Build, where I think I did 7.
So
So this one's even more.
So basically, in Ignite 2019, we're going to have to
Yeah.
expect that we
It's
have
just the whole thing is demo.
13
Basically,
demos, or
13
14
demos.
demos.
Yeah,
they're
exactly.
coming
It's just
up.
going to be hi, demo 1. Hi.
Yeah. Yeah.
Love it.
Yep. Switching away from technology for a moment, because obviously a lot of our audience and people that follow you online know that you're also on the side, as your hustle on the side. I don't know how you have time for a hustle on the side. Is also
It's called side hustle,
It's
Rick.
side hustle.
It's called
It's
side
true.
hustle.
Is also novels, and
Yep.
you've done a number of novels that so far. And are there any additional novels that are in the works that you're able to share? That was from
No.
Robert Held that came up and asked that one.
I'm sad to say that I've been too busy, and I actually wanted to take a break from it too,
Yeah.
to kind
Okay.
of reset. Think, that was a 3-book series. I thought, 3 books, trilogies, kind of.
It's a good way to do it.
Natural way to run that, and then take a step back, focus on Azure, which is just as I explained, gotten bigger and more hectic. Like keeping up with what's going on now is
Right.
actually a huge. 4 years ago, I could pretty much keep track of things. Certainly 8 years ago, I knew everything that was going on in Azure.
Right.
Now, I come to events like this and go, oh, we announced that? Yeah, so
that's done already? I didn't know that.
So, it's definitely more of a full-time, occupying every available minute that I've got.
So is that also occupying your time for keeping things away from, maintaining the sysinternal tools and other things like that?
Because people are curious about that, too, if you have any
yeah,
love
so
to give.
I've continued to do some things on the sysinternals tools. It's certainly not the rate of updates that I had even 4 years ago. It's slowed down a lot, but there's a few tools that I continue to iterate on and tweak. And if I get a feature request, and actually I've made some enhancements for Azure's own use. So
nice.
Within Azure, the infrastructure. So I'll get a team that says, hey, we're using this tool. Can you add this to it? And I'll add to it. Like ProcDump is a tool that we use on our servers to capture crash dumps. And so I've made some changes to that for use in Azure infrastructure.
That's very cool. That's very cool. So when we kind of talk about, this is an interesting question coming in from Dave, when you think especially about the last 4 years, and you said there were some things you kind of didn't anticipate and some things you did. You expected the growth, maybe it was a little more challenging for some enterprises than others. He's talking about things in the cloud change so quickly. And how do you feel about the current rate of change in the environment overall, especially with the platform as a service stuff?
So what's happening now is an acceleration. And I think that acceleration is happening for two reasons. Acceleration in terms of capabilities and new services. And one is that if you, again, just directly correlated with the number of people at Microsoft that are working on it,
right?
That's exploded. And so there's a ton of innovation going on.
There's going to be a ton of stuff, yeah.
And the other one is that we've got a foundation in place now. So we had some basic building blocks 4 years ago, 5 years ago. But if you take a look at the building blocks we've got in place now, like Cosmos DB is one example building block that's been released in the last 4 years.
Right.
The Event Grid, another one. Azure Functions, another one. These building blocks now, you can build really cool things on top of. And so that lets people innovate faster as well. If you wanted to develop a new cool service 4 years ago, you wanted that kind of functionality, it's not you're on your own.
You had to do it yourself, and it wasn't iterative as much, and it was supported.
Exactly.
You had to kind of update everything yourself, right?
So the layers are getting richer for you to build things on top of.
Do you have like an internal Shark Tank type of activity where different PMs come in and like pitch ideas, and then we're going to use this service, and then we're going to come up with this crazy new one on top of it, and you kind of say, I'll give you $100,000 for that. Give me 25% ownership.
Are you the Mark Cuban or are you the Kevin O'Leary? I guess is the real question we want to know. But no, do you guys do that?
We've talked about instituting that. We haven't yet. I think we're going to have to just to rein in kind of the kind of creativity that goes on and focus some of our efforts. I do have an incubation team that I've grown that of a few people that I'll point at and say, hey, let's go explore this. And that's pretty recent.
That's cool, yeah.
That is really cool. But how do you kind of manage with all this growth, which is so exciting, and all this innovation, with still making it easy, especially for enterprises who might be adopting the past stuff, to kind of move on and feel like there's some stability there and that stuff isn't changing all the time underneath them?
So one of our principles as Microsoft in serving the enterprise is that we don't want to break the enterprise. And this is a lesson that, this is basically Microsoft is built on top of that promise of compatibility.
Backwards compatibility.
Absolutely.
So when, this is about 4 years ago, you're familiar with RDFE and cloud services.
Oh, yeah.
We looked at that and said we've learned a lot from that. We can actually create something that is much better and much more a better platform for everything we want to do.
Right.
So we came up with Azure Resource Manager and resource providers, knowing that this is probably our last chance to have a major platform shift, because we'd already had customers that are still using cloud services today, even that it's going to be hard for them to move. And every time we do something like this and leave the previous thing behind, because we stopped investing there and new features go to the new platform, that customers are, would like us to continue to support them. So one of our operating principles is not breaking compatibility with APIs. So that's something I've personally been involved in, is versioning our APIs and having non-breaking versions changes. So that because It's kind of interesting little anecdote here. I was talking to the CTO at a relatively small startup. It's a little bit bigger now that does DevOps CI/CD support.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking about APIs and versions, and he's like, no, it's a DevOps world. It's Web 3.0, and you can break stuff, and then developers will go and
Fix
adapt
it later
to it
and just move on. Yeah.
And even then, said to him, no, that maybe your customers can,
Right.
and actually, I know that they can't because your customers are our customers, and you're enterprise focused.
Yeah.
But enterprises budget their money like this. Oh, we've got this problem to solve. Let's go put some money into it, which means developers.
Yep.
Get that working. Oh, now go work on this. And this thing you expect to continue working.
You expect it to continue work, and if it stops working just because I upgraded
Yeah.
something and I didn't even know it was going to break.
Exactly.
Yeah,
then
that's
you're
not
like,
okay. You're
now
like,
I've got to
what
go
the
spend money
hell?
that I didn't want to spend or didn't know what to spend, and it could cause downtime and all sorts of problems.
I was going to say, or even worse, like their system goes down.
Yeah.
Which is
Even if you give them a warning, it's like, okay, here's money I need to go spend to adapt. So we're very cognizant of that effect of the platform.
Nice. We're just going to do a shout out to Tom, who's basically saying, "You are my hero and idol." Thank you very much. That is all. So
Thanks,
thank you, Tom, for having that nice question, that nice comment that happens to be there. Actually, Kirk Yap actually was asking online, which is kind of
Yes.
interesting. Do you ever see yourself kind of stepping away from the sysinternal tools and being able to hand them out to another team? Like, I'm surprised that you don't have the resources available to you to be able to have like a dev team. Here, you can now
or do
be
you
the
just love them?
sysinternals dev
Are they
team.
yours?
Yeah. No, I
It's
do
too
love
personal,
them. I do
right?
love them. And I have kept close hand and control over it. But I have had people contribute to various tools, like Andrew Richards, who works.
Yes.
He's contributed to ProcDump.
Oh, actually, I thought when you said that, I was like, I think I know somebody who's worked on that. So
Yeah.
yeah, that makes sense.
So, and there's been a few other tools where there's been contributions from people. But at this point, I'd like somebody to go, because there's a long list of feature requests.
Right.
And I don't have the time to go do them now, but I want to keep the tools healthy. So I've just literally, as of a week ago, hired a developer that can help maintain the site
Nice.
and the tools.
Oh,
and
nice.
yeah, so
Excellent.
coincidental timing on that.
Good comment on that question. We did not plant that, we swear. One of the questions, or one of the topics that you're really passionate about, and you've given the talk lots of times, and there's a great video on Channel 9 of you and Seth talking about it, is blockchain.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, you see huge potential in that. I'm going to be honest, I'm still a little bit skeptical about some of its uses outside of cryptocurrency. And I know that some other people are still trying to kind of wrap their minds around that. What's the most innovative kind of use case you're seeing? And I guess for people like me who are less, I guess, have kind of drunk the Kool-Aid and we think it's interesting, but aren't really convinced that it might do everything everyone says it could do. What can you say to people like me, but also, I guess, beyond that, just like what's really interesting that you're use cases you're seeing with it?
Good question, and I think that I've in talking about blockchain and hearing what people ask about it and the skepticism, I've kind of narrowed down on the value proposition of it, which is if you take a look at a bunch of parties that want to transact with one another in some way, and none of them trusts anybody among themselves or anybody else to operate a database where they do those transactions.
Okay.
Blockchain is a good answer there.
Okay, that's actually, you inadvertently answered my next question, which were my frequent question, which is why not just use a database, but you're saying I don't trust them to operate it. Okay, so all right.
So it's
fair enough.
So that highlights the value proposition as a decentralized database. It already has these other properties too, as a mutable record of transactions, but you could actually do that on top of a standard database.
Right.
It's the decentralized part of it that is the value here. And if you take a look at the kinds of scenarios that have this kind of trust problem, and everybody wants visibility in real time to what's going on, the immutability helps too. Cross-border payments, that's a big one. In fact, JPMC just announced their consortium of 70 banks on their cross-border consortium blockchain. Supply chain, and specifically food safety, is another big one.
Okay.
Royalties, so actually we launched one with EY and Ubisoft on royalty payments for Xbox for games.
Oh, nice.
Through Xbox. So we want to create an ecosystem there of publishers and resellers that will track payments, and that is a huge, huge benefit to getting payments to artists and publishers, the creative people, as soon as
they can without delay and having
as soon as
visibility
transaction
into,
happens,
right? Because
basically,
right now they don't know what's coming. Once a quarter they get their check. And
Right.
Is this good or bad?
Yeah.
I
And
don't
now,
know.
like every time either somebody downloads a game or maybe streams a song or something, they can immediately that transaction could be logged, and then however long it takes to get through the block, they'll get the payment.
Yep. So that's a great scenario for it. Another one is loyalty programs.
Okay.
And so blockchain networks where there's multiple stores or chains participating in a royalty program where the points are transferable across them. So there's multiple parties. None of them want to trust anybody else to operate this thing.
Right. No one wants the single source.
And so customers can track their royalty payments usage on this blockchain, and the retailers can too. That's another one. Like I mentioned, supply chain seems to be a huge one.
Okay.
Because in that one, you've got multiple suppliers, you've got some products that are being transacted among them, and keeping track of where things are right now is huge complexity, lots of fraud, lots of waste, lots of reconciliation, and challenges of payments, and so we've got multiple customers that are launching blockchains for supply chain management.
That's really interesting. Do you think, a lot of these solutions, and I think these are good examples, do you see, and I guess it might be too early in some cases to know, these sorts of things becoming productized in a way that might be more visible to people who aren't, using those systems, in the outside world, because obviously, like, supply chain management makes sense, but that's not, the big kind of consumer use case, right?
Well, the loyalty programs are consumer.
Yeah,
and,
that's true.
There are some we do have some partners that are working on loyalty programs that are like retail or like common restaurant chains that you're familiar with. So but the fact is, end users won't know it's blockchain. It's just a way of interacting.
Just another transaction for them. That's
because
it.
they don't know there's a SQL database underneath.
Fair enough. Fair enough. That's true. Fair enough.
I refuse to use this because it has SQL underneath it. There's obviously we're talking about a whole bunch of change and the stuff that's happened over the last 4 years, and the last 8 years or 9 years in total, and stuff like that. Dave actually comes up with a good question about what are your thoughts on having a more detailed level of massive scale of change, being able to do like the change control log or the service updates and all the different things that have changed and all the different services, because we have 72, 128. Like I don't even know how many services we have inside of Azure. We don't have a centralized release notes anywhere.
We use the blockchain for that.
Yeah. So I haven't looked recently, but I think there is a place where you can go see all the updates.
There's this services updates subscription that you can do. I remember when I was a PM on Corey's team, when we released something new or something updated to that particular service, we could put an entry inside of this particular form and go through the process, and then it would pop up as a notification, or it'd pop up inside of that one.
So it is, and there is a web page you can go to see that list of things that are some things that we've already announced are coming, as well as the announcements that we made.
Yeah, as foregoing ones too. You obviously haven't seen any changes coming out from that, or you haven't heard any feedback for people saying it's not fast enough, or anything else.
I haven't. No,
it's the first time. It's the first time.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we just need to
make it more aware.
Yeah,
maybe
more aware.
They're not complaining to me. They're complaining to other people.
It reminds me of the time when people would subscribe to the RSS feeds of new TechNet articles, or and you can subscribe to the RSS feed of this one particular site, and as soon as something would come out, boom, you'd have emails or questions about people asking about it all of a sudden. Just so same kind of things now available for Azure Update services. We've got about 7 minutes left, just so you know, for time check for what we're going on. Again, thank you for the folks that are out here to being able to join us. If you're on the Channel 9 page, you're more than welcome to go off and to fill out a question. We might have some time to be able to get to it.
We talked a lot about kind of things in the past and how things have evolved. Other than blockchain, what do you see kind of coming forward in the future? What really excites you?
Serverless computing, edge computing. Those are two things that are exciting. Well, obviously AI, ML in everything.
Of course.
But that's just going to be foundational.
That's like a given, right?
That's table stakes. Everyone's got to have that.
Spread it everywhere. But edge computing, and I've got a cool demo tomorrow to show how we can push cloud-consistent microservices out to edge devices.
Okay.
We're working hard on that so that people can use the same tooling, and actually they can manage their edge applications through Azure Resource Manager as a holistic cloud edge application. And then edge and serverless. So there's been some announcements here too, like Virtual Kubelet, which connects Azure Container Service
with
ACI,
with
Azure
ACI, with
Container
AKS,
Instances,
yes.
which is serverless containers. And I'll be also announced this week is Service Fabric Mesh preview. Service Fabric Mesh being serverless microservices for Service Fabric applications or just containerized applications where you don't worry about the infrastructure at all. And so those are, I mean, that we're at the beginning of the beginning of, or beginning of the middle, something like that. End of the beginning of the serverless move, kind of evolution, and there's a bunch of innovation coming there.
Yep. Awesome. Yeah, I actually was talking to Corey yesterday at Mechanics about the ACI and AKS stuff as well as the Service Mesh stuff, and he was showing some demos, and it's exciting. And I think as so many people are excited about both containers and serverless and being able to have those two worlds together, that's really a good thing.
And that's a great example of what I was talking about before about having this foundation in place. If you have serverless foundation in place, the agility you can go create an application on top of it. Now, you don't have to set up a cluster. You don't have to manage it in the virtual machines and all of that. It's just all taken care of for you. So,
yeah, you can just focus on your code and focus on what you want to get done rather than having to look at all the overhead and freak out about how big does this need to be. And
So you bringing up the whole part of serverless and smaller pieces of microservices on top of the architecture, stuff like that. We're still making investments in very large-scale things, too.
Yeah.
Like I know that Corey also had a demonstration he was talking about earlier with some of the big, massive SAP HANA database dedicated hardware systems that are out there, and some of the new machine sizes that are coming out, too. I think he did a very basic one of doing like a check the memory, and that's it.
Yeah.
Oh, he stole my demo.
It's just to check the memory, though. Man. You're probably going to have something more with flashing lights.
Yeah, it is. No, and it was 20 terabytes of memory in kilobytes. So
it's nothing to sneeze at, I'll say. That's for sure. But we're still continuing to make investments down those areas because certain organizations and certain different workloads require that you still have that kind of hardware that's on there.
Yeah, actually, that is kind of a surprise to me. In some ways, not. If you go back to the way people thought cloud was going to evolve in the 8-year-ago time frame, it was cloud is about commodity, scale out servers. And as enterprises started to move, they've got workloads that demand
that are going to
scale
be more
up.
Than that, right?
So we've gone more into scale up and specialized hardware rather than cheap commodity servers now. While that might be the mainstream compute fleet, we've got these very high-end systems and specialized, like the HC2 VM size Corey probably talked about, which is 8 NVIDIA Volta 100 cards in one box.
Definitely the V2 in the N series for what it was for coming out by. People were very excited to see what they could do with that and just the sheer power what you have for being able to do deep level analysis and cancer research and all sorts of different stuff.
Or mine cryptocurrency.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know if it's cost effective.
It's not. It's definitely
based
not.
on the current prices these days.
No, of course not. But it won't stop people from trying anyway because that's always fun. Fun way to break a computer is to see.
Especially if your company's paying for it.
This is true. You just put it on the subscription. You
just
deal with it at the end of the month.
I've ran into Jeffrey Snover last night. And he's
sorry about to hear that.
I didn't physically run into him, but obviously he's very, very near and dear in talking about the Azure Stack space, the Azure Stack stuff. Is there an ongoing rivalry between Mark Russinovich and Jeffrey Snover around Azure and Azure Stack?
No, actually we see eye to eye on that stuff.
Okay,
it's just about everything else. PS exec versus PowerShell.
Okay. And deciding which one's going to be winning out overall. Have you chosen a more friendly tool, or what is your tool of choice these days at the command line?
That's a good question.
Azure CLI?
It's Azure CLI, and Cloud Shell.
And Cloud Shell, because it's anywhere, right? One of my colleagues is doing a session around step away from the GUI. And teaching people about how to go off and use the Cloud Shell, PowerShell on Server Core and that sort of stuff too.
Yeah, no, Cloud Shell is awesome for anybody that hasn't tried it out. And you can do PowerShell-based Cloud Shell if you really, really want to.
Yeah. It's running PowerShell Core. Running PowerShell Core, and it has the base modules you need to have to be able to go off and work with it. And that sort of stuff coming up. We literally have about a minute and change left that's there. I'm trying to scan quickly to see if there's a quick question we can ask you there. How about if we give you any closing thoughts?
Yeah.
What would you recommend for people to go off and to try on Azure if they've used it before, but there's something new they could go off and explore with?
I'll say as general for people that want to get started in Azure or they've got some basic familiarity but want to learn more is the new Microsoft Learn, which is, I think, fantastic.
Are we going to see you there as a possible module contributor, perhaps?
I don't know. I've not been approached, so
consider it officially approached at this point.
Officially approached.
So maybe, but that's a great place fantastic place to get started. I'm really happy that we did that.
Right.
then check out my session. That's another place to
Absolutely.
see
So-
cool
Check out our
stuff.
session.
Shock and awe demos.
Yeah, you will actually be able to go off and see Mark Rusinovich's session on the data center coming up tomorrow.
Yeah.
I don't know the exact time slot.
So I think it's 1:45.
At 1:45. You'll be able to catch it here. You
Yep.
can also catch it on demand after the fact if you register for techcommunity.microsoft.com.
Yeah.
Right after this session, we actually have a session which is from Samuel Lee and a bunch of the other PMs
Nice.
from the Windows Administration Center. That's
Yeah.
the old-fashioned project Honolulu.
Yep.
That's coming
That's a
up. So
gr-
they're doing
great.
their session coming up right after this.
Okay.
Anything else?
No, thank you so
Close
much
the
for
time.
taking
Yeah,
the
no,
time to
thanks
answer
for
our
having me.
questions
Always fun.
and asking things to the
Yeah.
community. We appreciate it.
Really appreciate you taking the time out. And with that, we'll see you on around the next one. Thank you very much for joining us. And thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mark.